Gaming has become part of everyday life for years now, but gaming is in a bit of trouble in recent years. Games nowadays seem to be dipping quality, unfinished, unpolished, and oftentimes, a lot of flack have been given to the devs who create these games. What prompted me to talk about this was when I was watching a video of Charlie talking about the closing of Volition's doors, and him asking a question that I think many gamers, including myself, has asked themselves. Why aren't there any games that are in the middle ground between indie and AAA games anymore? If you've been around the era between PS2 and the middle of PS3's life cycle, then you would remember that every month, a shit ton of games will be announced, released or anything like that. You guys remember Infamous? You guys remember the Mercenary series? Games like that where they weren't in the beginning like AAA games, but they were still wonderful games that I think a lot of people think fondly on now. New IPs cropping up all over the place, birthing franchises that will elevate these games into AAA game status. But I think the problem lies in the AAA game status. If every company goes full force into trying to make every game AAA, then who is making the games that are sort of in the middle ground bunch, right? Gaming, as Charlie has said before in his video, has made a shit ton of money. A lot of the game franchises now were just single games back then with no super budget for its development, and we rarely get games like this now, which is honestly saddening. The money these companies want is the big, successful AAA franchise money that allowed them to grow in the first place. So they poured all their resources into these games, and at first it was alright. The games hit, franchises grew. However, as technology advanced and demand for each aspect of a game to meet next-gen expectations, gaming has hit an impasse. Now, a lot of games are stuck in long development cycles, having to sacrifice aspects of games to focus on others, having to accommodate for inferior consoles and lowering aspects of these games just to help out these other consoles perform better, and that just sucks, honestly. But the curse of AAA gaming is a multifaceted one. Let's look at the dev perspective. Crunch is a big thing with gaming companies. It's fair to say that crunch is an unfortunate benefit for video game development. Most video game devs now, especially in the West, have to balance the aspects of the games they are working on, which depends on the game's director's vision. Reasonable enough until so much of the time has been wasted on one or two aspects of the game, trying to reach a specific vision of a game, of how it looks, how it plays, the story, the mechanics, and most importantly, how to monetize it. How many games have we seen that look pretty, but are pretty ass to play and aren't player friendly? How many games have come out unfinished because the developers either didn't use their time well or were in development hell because no one knew what the fuck to do? Many older games are pretty stylized in one way or another, building on the previous game system so they don't completely remake a game from the ground up and wasting resources for a game they already have basically developed. Look at Madden. They recycle content but never elevate the gaming experience, since most likely they don't know where to go, and it's easier just to make money this way. Look at Star Wars Battlefront 2, a game made in collaboration by DICE and two other studios. The game came out and it was widely criticized for its gameplay and loot box loop. Then when they changed everything once the game had enough content, they bailed at the first chance they got. For the love of God, lastly, look at Cyberpunk. The development A team was still working on Witcher DLCs, while B team was working on Cyberpunk. Once A team finished up on the DLCs for The Witcher, there was a complete overhaul on all of Team B's progression, and the idea for Cyberpunk would change and cause a massive waste of time to reveal the game we got at launch, which was unfortunately just a fucking mess. If I got anything wrong from there, it's been a while since I looked into these gaming issues. But overall, game development on the dev side is pretty much easy to get sidetracked and just to go wrong, especially when building a AAA game. It's like trying to build a skyscraper that reaches space. 5-star hotels, amazing food, amazing entertainment, the whole works, right, in a span of 4 to 5 years. But the construction crew is constantly being moved around, and different parts of the skyscraper are getting more attention than others. And 9 times out of 10, the skyscraper will collapse or completely look like shit. Let's look at the perspective of the higher-ups. I'm not going to say that they aren't part of the problem. A lot of the issues that come from games being so fucked up is because higher-ups keep fucking with development for some reason, right? Alright, let's look at Bobby Kotick. This man is worth so much goddamn money compared to many of the other CEOs in the East who own their own gaming companies. That crazy amount of money that he always has and gives to himself, I guess, could be used to help get game developers much more help in completing their projects. But I can't really knock these guys for wanting to pocket the money, since it's what these games are made for, to make money. Lastly, let's look at the perspective of a gamer who just wants to play fun games. How can someone do that if these games come out in fucking messes and the only saving graces are indie games and games that come out from the East that look way more fun than games that come out here in the West? Do I think it's fair to raise prices on games on next-gen consoles? Yeah, I do, only if the game is a finished fucking product with some bugs as an exception. Do I think it's fair for game studios to be shut down like Volition just because they made one bad game? That recently, through Yongyea, I learned that the game was influenced by the higher-ups to be different than what the devs originally pictured. So no, I don't think it's fair if this is the case. Although I will say, putting all your chips into one game for a good amount of years is their fault. The game's issues is their fault, and why it failed is on both the dev and the higher-ups, since the game didn't resonate with their built-in fanbase at any level. Do I think gaming is at jeopardy? I do. I do think it's at jeopardy, just for the simple fact that game developers have attacked each other for trying to set a higher standard than what they are doing now. It's a sign that doing anything better than the standard in their eyes is just a sin. Look at Elden Ring and how that was received by other developers. I think I can come up with a few solutions that could, in theory, help out gaming to be a much more balanced place. 1. We need desperately that middle ground of gaming where IPs are just being thrown at the wall, just being created just for the fun of it, and just seeing what they can explore in creative ways, in creative experimental ways to do with gaming. 1. We need desperately that middle ground of gaming where IPs are just being created and it being explored in creative experimental ways. The second idea would be how publishing companies can fund more creative IPs from studios they already own that doesn't take the budget of a AAA game to make. What they could also do is trickle down IPs not in use or ones that could use another game to small to mid-sized studios to be made with a set budget and focus on unique stylized graphics and gameplay. And lastly, the third idea I have is that there needs to be a proper balance between games in the middle section of gaming that we're trying to create and games in the AAA section. AAA games can always be on next-gen consoles. They are always on the forefront of gaming, but games in the middle section can always be played from previous generation consoles, and maybe next generation consoles and be that bridge between the two. Honestly, think about it. Games in that middle section between indie and AAA games can have the best of both worlds. Doesn't need too much optimization to cause problems to be played on next-gen consoles, and honestly, it can be playable for everyone. I think the entire gaming industry internally needs a big change because I do not see any way games will elevate to a much more fun and exciting degree if development is so unbalanced to reach that AAA status. Thank you everyone for watching the video. Subscribe, like, and share the video if you enjoyed it. Let me know your opinions on everything I've said, my ideas, everything I put together. I want to know your thoughts. Stay healthy mentally, emotionally, and physically. Peace.